In the summer of 2018, my friends and I went on a 2-week journey to the Iberian Peninsula, an incredibly diverse region that includes many countries like Spain, Portugal, and the territory of Gibraltar. On our journey, we saw some of Europe's most fantasized cities and uncovered some of the diverse landscapes the peninsula had to offer. Bobby Mohan, Thomas Koska, and me, TJ Huizar, are travelers seeking to uncover this seemingly infinite planet and all of its curiosities. Allow us to tell you about what we uncovered on our journey to Iberia.
So far, guys, we've been to 6 distinct regions in Spain and Portugal in the Iberian Peninsula. Which would you say has been the most prideful in their national identity?
I think the Basque region was very prideful. There were Basque flags everywhere, and they spoke their language, and they were very impressed when somebody else spoke it.
Estamos aquí a Guggenheim Museo. For me, the Basque language was really amazing. The first thing that I saw when I came from Bilbao was a sign that was in Basque, English, and Spanish. I was so impressed that the Basque language, because in older times it's been oppressed by the Spanish government, and now it's making a revival, and it's stronger than ever, I would say. And you can see signs in Basque, and although we weren't in Bilbao in the Basque region for long, I was able to just say a few words to people in Basque, and they were just so profoundly amazed that somebody would take the time to learn some Basque to speak with them in their own tongue.
For me, I'd say Madrid was one of the best regions in Spain for national identity because they're so proud of their nation. As we drove by in our bus through apartment complexes or even just individual houses in the countryside, Spanish flags and Madrid flags hung everywhere with the star pattern, and you could see people really enjoying their country, especially through music and art. As we walked through the Royal Plaza for the King, even, there were people playing accordions and singing along to national songs like Cielito Lindo or popular tunes they enjoy from the country.
And I would say Asturias because, just like his shirt, they gave us this shirt that says Vuelve a Paraíso, Vuelve a Sentir Asturias. And they gave us this shirt as we left this region of Asturias because they feel that their culture is something so unique, but very little people get to experience true Asturian culture. And I could really tell that they have a national identity. Even though their language is very similar to Spanish, I could still make out signs that instead of las or el or los, they said les, alias, which is an Asturian article. So I think Asturias definitely feels the most underrated, but yet they have such a culture to shine. Oviedo, you saw so much culture and so much Asturian richness that you could only find in Oviedo and Porto and all that.
One of the major culture shocks I had when we started this tour of Spain and Portugal was the sense of community and camaraderie between the citizens of Spain and Portugal, and in these individual nations, how much they feel connected. And that ties into earlier about national identity, but also ties into just different ways of life, communicating and living together and just existing peacefully together. A lot of this is seen in neighborhoods in Santiago de Compostela, one of my favorite cities. You could see in the medieval district people who still live there from generational homes. They talk to each other, and in these narrow alleyways, they're almost like one large family instead of multiple smaller ones.
So we drove through the northern region from Bilbao. We flew from Madrid to Bilbao, which gave me a premier taste of what was yet to come. I got to see little villages in the green and lush surroundings. And as we drove from Bilbao to Oviedo, I saw how people live in little townships, and I also saw some truly unique beauty that people just underestimate its potential, which can be a good thing because not so many people are there right now. But it's also a little sad that very little people get to see something so amazing, something so immense in this world that is left unknown to the more famous southern Spain.
Also, the landscape of southern Spain, it's very close to the African landscape, at least what I think of it. All the right colors of trees with the desert, and just reminds me of a lot of what I think of Africa. I've never been there. That's what I think it looks like. I really like Gibraltar because it's right next to Spain, so it has that culture in it, but it's also part of the United Kingdom, which means people speak British there and they have the British culture. And then it's also right next to Morocco, so there's all kinds of different cultures. And it was cool how they were able to build a city and preserve the rock, where they have all the monkeys and wildlife and the caves, which is really cool.
To Gibraltar.
This is so cool. I'm in the UK. I'm in Gibraltar. I just completely switched countries.
As for me, I like off-the-beaten-path destinations, and one of those that we definitely could include is Porto de Barqueiro in Galicia, and we went there, we ate lunch calamari, and I can remember just looking at the city, seeing just some of the most beautiful architecture. Although it wasn't massive as to a lot of what we've seen, we truly saw a humble civilization, and I just felt impressed with this earth. It's amazing what humanity can do when they really just put their minds to it. I think a lot of adults would pay for something like that, and we're very fortunate to have been able to just see that.
My favorite city personally was Santiago de Compostela, or commonly known as Santiago. It's one of the smaller communities of northern Spain. As TJ said earlier, most people only look at southern Spain or Barcelona, Madrid, these major communities, but Santiago's a hidden gem for me. It's a community with beautiful medieval district, and what I love about it is just how the old blends right into the new, and how they preserve that rich history. Whether it's in St. Martin's Church or the Grand Cathedral of Santiago, you feel special there, and you feel like you're part of a different time zone. Like a different time period altogether. One of the most special things was definitely Santiago. One of the major minority cultures seen in Spain that we just saw in a couple of recent last days here was Northern African and Arabian and Arabic influences here. And that is a minority, but it's definitely still prevalent in these cities. Even in places like Tarifa or Sevilla, Granada, after the Reconquest, people just think that, you know, in the Reconquest they took everything away and nothing remained. And people also think of the original invasion of the Iberian Peninsula as such a horrible, sinful act, and a religion can mold views on that. But one basic underlying theme is that whenever a culture embeds itself into a new land, new territory, whether or not its overall actions or intentions are good or are benefiting the area, the culture it leaves, the language remnants, the people, the fashions, the different words or music, arts that it brings, that will stay in the country forever. And where we come from, the United States, we see a lot of that. From in Phoenix, Arizona, we see a lot of Hispanic influence and such, and here you see that as well, because when Islamic rulers and when Muslim sultans came to declare the Iberian Peninsula as their own, what they left was more important than anything they could have found. It's more important than their sultanship or their palace, their gold. What's more important is what's left after they're gone, and that's the immense Arabic influence in the Iberian Peninsula. Okay, we're getting like matching pants, matching style. It's gonna be awesome. They're like Arabian pants.
Another prominent minority that I've noticed here is gypsies, not just here in central and south Spain, but also in the rest of Europe, in Slovakia, in Italy, everywhere pretty much. And they have their own culture, and it's really interesting to learn about it. Like selling rosemary, that's an old tradition by them, which I think is very interesting.
Also, the Jewish minority. Although Jews have not had it good in recent history in the last 100 years, century, they still manage to leave an impact everywhere they go. In Hungary, you see Jewish quarters. Israel, it's a whole state for Jewish religion. But here in Sevilla, actually, we saw the Jewish quarter, which was just a really impressive architectural construct that was made by this culture. Unfortunately, it was kicked out in recent times, well, a couple of centuries ago. But now it's starting to show its strength again. Although the religion is not prominent here, the culture definitely is.
And then also another story about that I've heard about by our tour guide. He told us that he saw a man standing at his ancestral home in Sevilla at that square.
In the Santa Cruz district. Yes, a man, or our guide was telling us that a man was touching the door, this old blue wooden door of the number 10 house on Santa Cruz Boulevard in the Jewish district. He just kept touching that door, and that was actually the home, as Tom said, of his ancestor, dating back all the way to the founding of Sevilla. And during the Inquisition, actually, they were forcibly removed from that house. But it was almost like his personal pilgrimage. A pilgrimage to find deeper within himself. And it was his job, his duty in life, to come and touch that door and feel connected to his Jewish culture and religion.
He came to Seville just to touch these bricks on this door. He spent hours and hours here. I could be with him only some minutes. More than 30 minutes. He was teacher at the University of Jerusalem. Today he's a pensioner, but he's still at Christmas wish your emails for Merry Christmas. Barabbas number 10. It was a terrible mistake taken by the Catholic monarchs, the expulsion of the Jewish ambassadors.
When you're traveling to a country and you know their language, you get a much broader experience because you get to talk to locals, you get to see how they live their life and experience that culture, and you get to talk to shop owners and everything and see really how it's like to be here. I think it's a great opportunity to see more of the world and see how other people live their lives.
For me, I would recommend to anyone seeing this or anyone listening to something like this, why travel? That question even. You have to travel to see the world, and not only see the world, but see the people of the world. Seeing monuments, seeing statues of famous people, or different borders, different cities, grand things that tourists often have in mind when they think of a country. That's amazing, because you get to see these sites, you get to say, I've been there. But what's more important is not that you've been there, it's that you've experienced that city, that country, that culture, talking to the people, and reflecting on yourself. The only way you can truly reflect on yourself and on your own life is by looking at others and by seeing their everyday life, what they do, how they live, how they interact, the languages spoken. Travel is more than standing in front of a building and taking a photo. Travel is the experience, the immersive action of going into another country and not visiting as a tourist, but visiting as almost in a native's shoes. And I think a great way to describe that and to describe that cultural difference is to simply state that you must witness every walk of life before truly appreciating it.